All right. I am perfectly happy to wait however long the technical side takes. We are recording. All righty. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and call this session of the Executive Committee of Dunn County to order. I believe we are all here. Approval of the minutes from the April 13th, 2022 meeting. Supervise.
I will second.
Okay.
Chairman, with a note that item 12.
Yeah. I used the March minutes as a template and I left something in there from March. There's a statement in there that says Supervisor Bartlett noted that this is our last meeting with Mr. Miller. And so that needs to be removed, but otherwise I think it's pretty tight.
All right. So
That's fine.
with the correction, motion by Supervisor Steen, second by Supervisor Morehouse. Any further comments or questions or corrections or anything like that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Minutes approved. On to public comments. I don't see anybody I don't recognize. I think we are without public comment at the moment, unless someone sent one in.
Yes.
Andrew, all right, no public comment. County manager report. Nick, over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen if I can find out how to do it. The only thing I have listed for the meeting today is to review the draft of the county board meeting. So we have approval of the April county board minutes. There'll be appointments, as Supervisor McCullough has noted. That could be a 45 to 50-minute item. It's a lot of appointments, but a lot of them don't require board approval. And the county clerk is going to be submitting listings of the appointments in advance, and so that should go over fairly smoothly. The report of the county manager will come next. Purchase orders over $40,000. We will have some information for you about undertaking preparation for the fiscal year 2023 budget and the capital improvements plan for 2023. The reports of the departments, Child Support Agency, Register of Deeds, Veteran Service Office, and libraries. And then oh geez, I see I got more typos in there. I'll correct all these. This is just a draft. We're going to have some resolutions and ordinances. There'll be the ordinance regarding the vehicle registration fee coming back in for a second reading. Recall that that lifts or removes the sunset clause. The Committee on Administration is going to have a resolution amending the wage grid and inventory of job classifications. That has to do with the class and comp study that was undertaken last year in advance of the budget. Part of that process included an appeal and review process. There have been some recommended changes to it. And so this would formalize those and amend our pay grid. And then in addition, there are actually some requests for new job classifications or renaming job classifications and a couple of deletions will be in that resolution. And then we have coming from the executive committee, the legislative committee and duties of the vice chair, some budget adjustments. They are included as a grouping of, I think, 5 different resolutions for this meeting. Our plan is to try to consolidate those into one resolution so that we don't have to have 5 roll call votes at the county board meeting. And then there's a resolution for adopting a capital improvements plan. You'll be taking that up later in the meeting. And then I left this out of the draft that I included with the packet, but there is also a rezone that's coming that was approved by the PR&D committee. And I missed that one. And so it's, since it's really a draft of the county board's agenda and it's not anything final, it's not inappropriate at all to include it here. So I have, and I just highlighted it so that you can see the change. And then reports from the standing committees. So if there are any standing committee chairs that have anything they wish to speak to the county board about, I can take down that information and then include a specific reference to the committee chair and the subject matter on which they wish to speak.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, at least for the moment, continue with the, if you have something you really need to share with the county board, we'll add it to the list, but otherwise we're not gonna just do these standing committees.
I think that's a very good practice. And this is usually where we figure that and determine that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Regarding the libraries there, it's suggested that we perhaps have them present in person. Would that be agreeable?
I certainly wouldn't object to it. As presentations go, they tend to be one of the more entertaining ones, but
Well, I think it'd be nice for our new board members, and also I think the libraries had a good year, I think. So we'd like to share that, if that'd be all right.
without
not a problem.
objection.
I could be in contact with them and just tell them that the board would really appreciate it if you could be present.
Yeah.
Sure,
And
that'd be great.
give a presentation to the county board.
Brief.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other standing committee chairs that wish to report on anything? Okay, well, and then I've included Supervisor Rogers actually gave me $20 after the last county board meeting as his contribution to the Sunshine Fund, which is to buy coffee and little packets of sweetener and I don't know, some creamer or something for the county board meetings and cookies and that.
That's for you.
That'll depend on the balance of the fund. Anyway, I put that in the agenda so that we could talk about it and then next meeting.
That all
And-
sounds
and-
good.
And that is, I believe, a complete iteration of what will come before you next Wednesday.
Of course, you'll change the last item.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Yep, another one. This got prepared on the same day that the budget stuff did. It was a long day for me and I missed a couple things. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Questions or comments for Nick? Okay, that looks like we're good on the agenda. Did you have anything else in the county manager report or?
I don't, if there are any particular questions of a more general nature, I'd be happy to. I don't know how to. Oh, there we go. I'd be happy to try to answer them. We do have, we have a specific item, which is the I guess that comes with actions to be taken by the
Yep.
committee. So we do have county manager recruitment update and a request for you to make another decision regarding that process. But otherwise, unless there are some general questions, we can move on to number 6.
All right, seeing none. Items placed at the request of the chair. That would be me. This is going to be very brief. And this is just when I took over as highway chair, I realized that there were a number of things that it would have been good to know in advance. For example, being on the traffic safety and EMS committee is an automatic part of the job. And I said, I should write all of these down. So the next person who gets this job knows about them in advance. And I got about halfway through that process.
Thank you.
Which I will pass along to Brian here, but I wanted you all to put in your heads as chairs, the things that you needed to know when you become a chair of this committee. And I figure, particularly right now, those of you who are new chairs are going to have things that you discover suddenly that you wish you had known going in. And if you could just like keep track of those for the next chair, that would be great. I also want to do this with all of the committees, because again, when I first joined the county board and I joined the highway committee, there was any number of terms that I had no idea what they were talking about. LRIP, local road improvement program. There we go. And I thought it would be good for the new committee members to be able to have, and I'm talking brief, like 3 pages at most with the really critical stuff on that front page, just the sort of the things that would give us more institutional memory and make it easier for new supervisors to just hit the ground running. So just kind of put that in the back of your head and we'll come back to it in a couple months. And that would be the sum total of me for committee handbooks. Any questions or comments on that?
Excellent idea.
Well, thank you. There's nothing like panic to drive innovation. So moving on to actions to be taken by the executive committee, county manager recruitment. And
Can you come up to the podium?
I've got the 3rd degree light right on.
Due to, turnover in the county manager, human resources director, and all the things in life, we were really busy in HR. And so this is Caitlin Esslinger.
Esslinger, yep,
Caitlin has been with us now for what, about 6 weeks?
a month, just a
A
little
month?
over a month.
And she's been working with the recruitment stuff in depth. I don't know if all of it, but with the corporation or assistant corporation counsel recruitment, and now with the human resources director recruitment. And she's also been working closely with the county manager recruitment and doing just an excellent job. And so she's here tonight to give you a briefing and let you know what it is that the HR is asking you to do.
Well, thank you very much. So Jenna and I, Jenna is a human resources manager, have been working on this county manager recruitment, as well as met with a few of the supervisors for the subcommittee of this recruitment. Jenna did prepare that report for you in the packet. So if anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer those. All right, and then the big thing that we need from you, your committee, is we are hoping that we could do first round of interviews, which will be the executive committee on June 27th. And since the whole committee would be there, it would need to be official meeting. And then possibly June 28th as well. That would be only if needed. So if the 27th you aren't able to determine a candidate for the position, it'd be second interviews on the 28th.
does that work for everyone?
June 27th is a Monday, and then the 12th. Yes.
Yeah.
So you'd want interviews then to be held in the afternoon that day. if we
Yeah,
have
well,
them.
I think the ultimate goal is to have no interviews on the 28th. But
In a
if
perfect
we
world.
need, yeah, in a perfect world, none, we wouldn't have any, but if needed, we could try to do the afternoon on the 28th.
And you're also doing the 27th at 1 o'clock, is that correct or no?
Well, we don't know how many candidates. The recruitment is currently open, so we're accepting applications as we speak. If you guys want to, it's out on a NeoGov or our job posting site, so you can go take a look at the recruitment. But we don't know how many interviews we'll be holding because we don't know how many candidates we have yet. So for right now, I would recommend holding your whole day, work day. Okay.
Oh,
And then
yeah,
the
I think so.
timetable is listed in there, our proposed timetable. The request at the bottom of Jenna's letter report is asking the committee to discuss scheduling, in addition to the special meetings, an evening dinner reception after the meeting, after the June 27th interviews.
Correct, yeah. So we took a look at the county manager recruitment from 2016, I believe. And they did do a little dinner for the candidates as well as, I don't know if it was a whole county board or just the executive committee. Unfortunately, I wasn't here at that time.
Just the executive committee.
Okay, just the executive committee. So we are hoping to do something similar to that again this year. It would be the same evening as the interviews. So the candidates, executive committee, maybe county board, and maybe some outside influential people in the Dunn County area. For example, the Stout
Chancellor.
that's the word, thank you. So that would also have to be a formal meeting because there'd be, I don't know, is it 3 people, more than 3 board members there?
Yep.
So is that the evening, the 26th or the evening?
27.
27th.
Yeah, the
Yeah, we
evening of the
changed
27th.
Ideally, we'll get all of the work done on the 27th, but
So if we're deciding during that, if we're making like decisions during the meeting on the 27th, right?
mhm.
And then we would have a reception after we've made that decision with all the candidates. Isn't that a little awkward?
Was anyone around for the 16th?
Tom, were you there for the
2016?
last time?
Yeah, I thought we just did with the finalists.
Yeah, it was,
I wasn't
It
on
wasn't
the executive committee, so I wasn't part of it, but
I think whatever we had, let's say had 60. down to 30.
So that would mean we would have decided on the 27th. It's gonna be hard to. all one day.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
but that none of these candidates will have been background checked by that point. So
So
it seems somehow reasonable to push it off until at least that.
the reception
pretty-
portion or the interviews? I'm sorry.
No, that the background checks, if we're going to have a reception, it would seem sensible to have it with finalists who have already been vetted.
Mhm. So normally we don't do backgrounds until after a contingent offer has been made. And then we really deep dive into their backgrounds. And then, so you would do the interviews, select a candidate and then deep dive into their backgrounds. And if something was to come up in the backgrounds, we could always rescind the offer.
It's, it's fair and accurate to say that the process of recruitment has been refined and modified and changed over the past few years. That's one of the things that Heather Murray brought to us is looking at everything again and making sure that we're doing it in the best practices kind of approach. And so I would expect that background checks may have been done in a more cursory manner back in 2016 and had already perhaps been completed.
Ryan said that it won't work. It doesn't work. They have the banquet and the reception after the 27th.
We can revisit this too and
Mhm.
come back to you again in a month because we'll have time.
Supervisor Steen?
Well, I was just thinking that's what. I was just thinking that's why we put in the second interview perhaps. You know, not that we don't want it, but maybe we do want it. And maybe that's when, you know, you have the 27th, you have to get together, and then on the 28th, you make your offer. Does that make sense? I mean, what we discussed trying to condense what we did here, but the object is to do it correctly, you know?
We-
And just as a point of information for the guys that weren't around, or the people that weren't around before. Pardon me.
Better slide over here, Gary.
You know, just a regular guy like myself, not familiar with the situation, but it's pretty standard practice to pay for their trip up here and pay for their room. And then, you know, and we thought, and I thought last time when we had the get together, that was a nice get together, and whoever you hire, man or woman, they'll want to, like, for instance, the stout person, or a lot of information that people would like about schools, about different things. So they get a chance to have a day or so to look around, you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was kind of my point, is that making a decision before that dinner can be part of that. Basically, it's kind of the part of the interview process. It's kind of an informal part, not only for us to kind of get to know the candidates better, but also for them to get to know us and the community better too.
Yeah, because that's
before that decision is being made afterwards.
Yeah, so potentially interviews and the reception on the 27th, and then the final decision meeting in the afternoon on the 28th, after possibly a second round of interviews.
And
is that.
I think the last time we made arrangements for each individual to have a little bit of a tour of the community after.
Yeah, that's what I asked Steve Rasmussen. He said that they had gotten a county board supervisor to take each of the people around.
Depending on the age of the people that we're hiring, you know, if they have school age children, you'd want to introduce them to the principal, you know, of the schools, and answer the questions that they might have, you know. So that, and then I would just like to say that the foot went in my mouth. So I think I can take it out of my mouth. Will you accept my apology? And now I'm signing off.
All right, so what it's sounding like is we'll take this back to the subcommittee, kind of refine the process, and then bring it back to you to make a final determination. Or are we able to make the decision of interviews 27th, dinner 27th, second interviews 28th, and then another meeting of the executive committee in the afternoon of the 28th?
I think we could probably set the meeting dates so that that's a solved problem. And then with the refinement, if we need to adjust that, we can adjust it. But I for one would be happier if we got that down and out of the way. How does that suit everyone else? Thumbs up? Okay, so Vaughn.
I'm wondering, and to me, it doesn't, anything works, but would it make sense at all if we had that get together, that reception the night before the interviews? I mean, I don't anticipate we're going to interview 20 people. I think we're going to interview a handful. We're going to know that handful already by that time, who we're going to invite to come up here and
It'd be a Sunday night though. That'd be kind of.
oh, that's,
challenging.
yeah, okay. Yeah, the date isn't good, is it?
Well, and I think there is some value in having had the interview conversation with people before the more informal setting, because it gives you a chance to talk back and forth and have a better sense of those things that you would like to learn in a more informal setting. Diane, you look pensive.
No, I'm okay with this. Excuse me, and I'll live with it. It just feels to me, I mean, let's just assume that we interview 6 or 7 or 8 candidates, and we'd be lucky if we had that many really qualified people. It just seems to me that a reception and meeting VIPs and touring the community would be much more appropriate for finalists, for the 2 or 3 candidates that we are really interested in retaining. I don't know, that's just my feeling about this.
We could certainly use the meeting before the reception, after the interviews, as a moment to like winnow it down to 3 finalists at that point. I'm not, the problem is we don't want to bring them back several times.
Oh, there's that.
I mean, if someone is relatively local, that's one thing, but if we're hauling someone, someone applies from Boston and.
So another thing that we did discuss at that subcommittee meeting was, depending on the number of candidates, we might have to do like a first round virtual interview. We weren't going to put that set in stone just because we weren't sure. But if there are, let's say 10 really qualified candidates, we could do a first round interview, and then this has like more of a second round interview, and kind of pick the best candidates of those.
And we could certainly build that into the process, and if we don't end up with that many qualified candidates, drop that particular step. Mike?
I like what Diane said about the finalists. But we're going to end up, after we interview, we're going to pretty much know the top 2 or 3. I mean, if we've got 5, there might only be 1, but it's very unlikely that we're going to have any kind of question amongst the top 3. And so, yeah, we just want the finalists, the ones that we think are good qualified candidates. Yeah.
John?
Oh, good heavens. Thank you. Blood with my water bottle. Do we know how many candidates we have already, and is there a deadline for when applications cease?
Let me take a look
that in
here
here?
real quick. I can get that.
End of the month.
Okay.
Yeah, it
May
opened.
31st.
It opened 5/2 and closes 5/31 at midnight.
Well, it seems like when we have those final numbers, that these decisions would be easier
Yeah.
that
I
we're all
would agree.
discussing now. So maybe it's okay to set the 2 dates aside and then decide when the banquet is after we have the number and how many we want to invite.
On?
One of the issues we discussed in the preliminary committee meeting was that, as you had brought up, that we don't want to require, they need to know how long they need to be here. I think up front. I think that's just professional. I don't think you can spring it on them after the interviews, and then say, stick around, and then you say, oh, by the way, we're gonna have a reception for you tonight, and then another interview tomorrow. And yet, I don't know how you don't invite, ahead of time, not invite every one of them to that reception. That's my kicker. Again, if it's local people, it certainly isn't even an issue. But if we have 1 or 2 candidates from, outside the area that would be staying over evening in a motel here in town, whatever, we have to take that thought into consideration, or we're gonna get ourselves into a situation we don't want to be in.
Well, we could put the specific scheduling off either to the next exec committee, or, as reluctant as I am to pile up extra meetings, this is one of the more important decisions this body is going to make. So we could plan for a special meeting once we know what the candidate pool looks like.
Next exec would be June 8th. That'd be enough time? Or not?
So, sorry, let me just pull this up. I believe we planned on a subcommittee meeting, so not the full executive committee meeting, on June 7th.
Yeah. June 7th.
So at that point, we were gonna figure out what candidates we were gonna interview. So probably at the June 8th, we could come up with a good plan that was created on the 7th. You guys can finalize it then if that's okay.
Supervisor Steen.
Yeah, and although your concern about the extra meetings is valid, that's one of the reasons that it doesn't bother me is because we didn't go with an outside search firm, which would be about $25,000. So I think this is pretty important, and if it necessitates a couple extra meetings, I think it's worth it because we want to make sure we get this right. Just as a point of information. Thank you.
And one more thing that I'll just volunteer too. I like the idea of like, depending on the candidate pool, deciding, it's like, okay, we have a lot. The first round of interviews will be virtual to winnow it down. And then by the 27th, either we'll have a small group, then there'll be finalists to start, or we will have kind of winnowed it down and they will be the finalists by the 27th. So.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is keep the 27th and 28th open on your calendars. And we'll plan on finalizing the calendar for those meetings on this meeting at the 8th. Any objections? Does that work for you? Is that a timeline you can work with?
Yes, that should work because that already fits into our timeline that we have created. Again, closes on the 31st, subcommittee choosing interviews on the 7th, and then we will come back on the 8th to this committee.
Okay.
Caitlin, do you think you'll have any difficulty finding a venue for a gathering?
So that would probably be the biggest difficulty is trying to find that venue, especially if we do wait until the beginning of June. I was gonna try to put out some calls to get holds. I'm not personally from Menominee, so I'm not sure like what kind of venues we have around here and if they do require down payments of any sort. So that would probably be a challenge.
So I know that the last time this was done, the county board reserved the Maple Tainter and had a dinner downstairs. So the Maple Tainter would be one possibility, Stout Ale House, Lucettes. I don't think Lucettes event space is open yet, but we do have a few.
It also is on a Monday, so hopefully that would make it a tad easier than later in the week. But
Jake says that meeting room too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
They do.
What-
We were just talking about the Wilson Place, but their meeting room upstairs is too small for this group.
Okay, why don't so we'll plan on making those decisions on the 8th. If you want to look around for potential venues, and if it looks like there's going to be a crunch, we'll have a meeting of the subcommittee before that and potentially bring it back to exec as needed.
sounds good to me.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
Anybody? Thank you. All right, that was one of the more challenging things on the agenda. Okay, reports, resolutions. Am I looking at the right point? Yes. And ordinance to the county board from the executive committee. And the first, the A and B here, I believe these are the ones that we need to approve as the exec committee. So first, resolution adopting a FY 2023-2027 capital improvements plan. If I can-
Beata is available and on the line. I just wanted to, I guess as a preface, there is some background information in here about the capital improvement plan, what we are trying to accomplish with it and how it's going, or, how they go when we're doing this. And in the final, paragraph, of course, as you know, at the March 2022 workshop meeting of the county board, the county board elected to prioritize ARPA funds over debt as the primary or sole funding source for 2023 capital projects. And Beata, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Oh,
We are gonna see if we can get you a little bit louder. All right, Beata, we're gonna move on and then come back to you once the technical problem is solved.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, so resolutions for budget adjustment, which is also gonna be, I believe, Nick, do you want to address it or do you want Beata to do that? We should jump down to 9.
I can do that. I just need to. There it is. Okay. These are a series of budget adjustments. The first one is CJC Council has a grant opportunity. This is the way it was explained to me, is that it's to establish a treatment in the jail. This came before the Committee on Administration a couple of weeks ago, but it's a grant that establishes treatment program, I think for opioid addicted.
Opioid and alcohol, and
Yeah.
it's a mix of a drug treatment to suppress the appropriate receptors with cognitive therapy.
Right, and the period of the grant program funding is April 1st of this year through September 30th of 2023. And so they're requesting the grant revenues would be a 150,000, and then there's the expenditures are listed there. And Sarah told me that anything that's not expended during this fiscal year would be presented as a request for carry forward, so that the grant period, which includes most of next year, the funds could continue to be used for the program.
So essentially a vote to accept the grant. Would someone
And approve the budget.
and approve the budget? Supervisor Rogers.
So is this a new program that we're implementing with this grant, or is this a
Yes,
existing program? And if it's a new program, at the end of this grant, then does the program go away or does it continue?
It would depend on whether there's further grant funding, I believe. There is some discussion. Sarah is involved in the committee that is at the state level that is looking at these going forward. So there may be an opportunity to continue this going forward with grant money. So the plan would be to continue it with outside money if we can continue it.
Sarah is here.
Oh, yeah.
well,
Did I
that
get that
works.
right?
You're doing just fine.
Do you, if you want to come on up.
I'm wearing my reading glasses. I was actually wondering who that was back there. I apologize.
So the grant.
Press your microphone button.
There we go. So this is, would be new funding to provide those new services in the jail. The grant period is as County Manager Nick Lang explained, so it goes through September 30th of 2023. But beyond that, we'll see, right? There might be additional grant funding available. There might be things that the jail wants to absorb into their medical contract. But essentially those medications are not covered. Well, anybody in the jail, their medical care is covered by the county. So this really comes in to help offset those expenses. It's not being provided right now. And I can't imagine it would be provided without grant funding, just because these medications are very expensive. So if there's additional funding out there that we can bring back to Dunn County to really provide that bridge to help them get out in the community and get connected with services, because Badger Care does cover it, but Badger Care is not in the jail. It's only once people leave the jail. So I hope I addressed your question.
Supervisor Steen.
Yeah, so if we would approve this, we could approve it with a motion that if this ends, it ends. And if additional money would be forthcoming later on, you could approach the board again.
Absolutely.
That's true. That's true in any event.
Yeah.
This is for a specific grant that allows providing the service for a specific time frame. And if the money's not spent, I presume you'd have to give it back.
That's correct. And if it's the grant period's extended beyond another year, then we would bring that back to for approval from the county board.
And
Thank
and is it true? It doesn't create any new positions or anything?
No, we are planning to contract and really absorb the additional work with existing staff.
Supervisor Morehouse.
I would move approval of the CJCC budget adjustment.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Steen seconds. My teeth were starting to itch about the discussion without the motion. So further questions or comments? Looks like you can make a break for it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes. Yes.
Budget Adjustment, Human Services Department. And these are, we've all seen these before. They're the typical bookkeeping. Extra money comes in, extra money goes out.
The Human Services Director is here. I think, yep.
She's here.
If there are any questions regarding this is also, I think, grant.
So if I could
funds.
get a motion, that would be great.
I'll move approval. of the
Supervisor
Human
Morehouse?
Services Budget adjustment.
Supervisor Steen. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, looks like you're off the hook. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. On to the next one, Public Health. Motion? Supervisors ons? Second by Supervisor Johnson. Questions, comments, speaking to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Same on to the Sheriff's Office. Motion by Supervisor Rogers, second by Supervisor Calabrese. Any speaking to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Neighbors of Dunn County. And again. Supervisor Zons. Supervisor Kinnear. Any further speaking to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Last one on this list, Highway Department.
Move we approve.
Motion by Supervisor Johnson, second by Supervisor Zons. Any further speaking? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Review of reports, resolutions, and ordinances come to the county board from standing committees. Exec committee, and these are the review. Ordinance amending chapter 2 of the ordinances to create a legislative committee, second reading. You're all familiar with it, and this is the second reading, so if no one has anything that they want to add at this time, we'll move on to the one for the highway committee, which is the,
Sure.
yes.
Maybe I read it wrong before, but in section 4. 10, when they're defining legislative membership committee. So on the third sentence down, it says chairperson of the county board shall be the vice chair of the executive
Oh.
fund. I think that's supposed to be legislative.
It is indeed. Thank you. I will correct that for the meeting.
Good catch. Anybody else? Okay. Highway, vehicle registration fee. Anyone feel the need to add anything at this time?
I'll add one thing if it's all right. Mr.
Certainly.
Chair. They really need this.
Oh, yes, they do.
That's what I'll add, so. And I would like to mention the reason that we took off the sunset clause is that it just seems like it'll open up a wound every 2 years. And if the highway ever becomes flush or the county comes flush with money, we can always address it at that time to pull it out, so.
Yeah, I think given the budgetary climate imposed upon the municipalities and counties by the state, it is unlikely to happen anytime in the near future. So there's,
Understand.
Nick, you appear to,
Yes, I was just gonna say there was a frequently asked questions handout that came contemporaneously when this ordinance was originally proposed and adopted. And I'm going to correct, I think there are a couple things that we can change in there to update it to current times. But I'm gonna include that as part of the county board packet.
That seems
So
like an
that
excellent
supervisors
idea.
have a chance to read about it outside of the actual ordinance.
All right. Anything else on that one?
Well,
Mike?
could I make a comment? I'm gonna go with it, you know, I think we have to do it. But I don't look at a sunset provision or having to vote on it again as an opening of wounds. I look on it as that's our job, to recognize that we have to make the tough decisions. And if we don't, and we're not going with the sunset ordinance, which I will go along with, we're no longer making any decisions. It's just the inertia or the momentum that's going to keep it going. So that's just, you know, it's our job to every once in a while look at things and vote on them and say, yeah, we still need this. But as it is, well,
Poor choice of words, I'm sorry.
no, but I've got to go along with it.
All righty. That appears to be it on that one for the moment. Committee on Administration, resolution amending the wage grid and the inventory of job classifications.
This is the resolution for that. You can see there are a number of changes that were made. The results of the appeals and review processes. There were, I think, 3 positions that stayed the same following the review. And one position was actually changed. Instead of being elevated to a grade, it went down. And then, so that these are the changes as a result of review and repeal or appeal. And then there were, excuse me, in addition, there were some changes to the list, to the inventory of job classifications. So some changes, some additions, and some, removing some. Some of these are relating to a kind of a reorganization and a new assessment of what was needed in IT.
And I will add, as I think probably an important point of information, is the review and appeal process was built into the process all along. So it's not like, oh no, the wage study is ended, we're going to now do reviews and appeals. It was, we're going to set up the wage study, we're going to look at these things. When we're done, we will give people a chance to talk that over and review and appeal. So that's just, it's part of the process rather than an addendum.
Correct. And if it's, I think for, transparency purposes, this paragraph, so it's conceptually, it's a little, it may be esoteric, but when the new wage grid was created, the wage grid doesn't know, doesn't care who's in it or how long they've worked for the county. And as part of the implementation process, employees were taken from wherever they were at in the old grid and placed into the new grid at the position where they would first receive at least a 5% increase in wages. The results of the appeal process, because a number of employees are actually moving up a grade to a higher paying grade. They're not going to go up to the same step in that grade. They would be placed in a step that would give them the first opportunity to receive a 5% pay increase over where they were last year. For some of those employees, this would actually result in a decrease in their wage. And one of the aspects that's built into this resolution is that those employees would be redlined where they're at right now, so that they wouldn't, in a sense, they wouldn't feel a penalty for having, either on their own or by their manager, having their position reviewed by request. And then, of course, when next year's whatever wage treatment the county board elects to adopt with respect to next year's wages, they would simply move or, in whatever direction that was, or stay put. So this is that resolution. And then this is you'll see there's a chart in here that shows the changes. Those positions that are highlighted in red are the ones that are impacted by the resolution.
Vaughn, do you have anything you want to add at this point, or?
Just the fact,
Uh,
in the explanation.
Excuse me.
In the explanation is also there is some financial changes, but if you look at the net result, it's very, very minimal. Because again, as was stated, some people are moving up slightly and some positions that are actually dropping back. And so the net result is, I think, less than right around a couple $1,000 total to the payroll.
It's $25,937 is the impact of the changes. That includes redlining those employees who are affected by the change in the pay grid, so that they don't experience a decrease in their wages. And the IT division, there was an evaluation that actually results in an estimated savings of $23,800. And then there was a highway department reclassification that was, and I think that's what Supervisor Hadlin was thinking of. It's only $686.
Any questions, comments? All right.
Do we have success, Dan?
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
We'll have to test.
Beata, if you're still with us and you're willing to give your microphone a try, hopefully we will hear you this time.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're still really quiet.
Okay, I promise I'm not whispering, so I will speak as loud as I can over here and hopefully you'll be able to hear me some.
You can hear if you hold the.
Beata, are you able to, can you call in from your cell phone to the meeting? Get the information out of the Google
Right.
Calendar and call in?
Yep, I'll do that.
I wonder if the gain on these is turned way down.
No, because I can, when he's talking and.
Right, and all of you, yes.
All right, well. While we are waiting for that, shall we do reports from the standing committees? Supervisor Johnson, Highway.
Want me to start off?
you happen to be where my eyes hit first.
That'll be fine. That'll be fine. We had a meeting this morning. Highway Commissioner Bender reported on highway operations. Started crack filling, cleaning ditches, guardrail repair, and continually patching potholes as usual. Crushing operations will be starting at the Fender Quarry next few weeks, I'm sorry. Of course, the shop staff continue to remove plow equipment from graders and plow trucks. The County Q project from 170 to County N has officially started. The County B project from US 12 and 29 to Packer Drive continues with design and real estate acquisition. County Z from County C to County C, it must be in between, not that familiar down south, but anyway. They are reviewing drainage culverts, quantities, and looking at borrow pits. Bridge project updates, County K Bridge project in Connersville will be starting May 12th. County K will be closed for the duration of the project. The Potter's Cemetery fence has been put up and they're waiting to install a gate, entrances, and barbed wire in the next few weeks. Budget process. What did I say? And barbed wire, I believe, must be on the top.
Oh, for the airport side too?
No.
Okay.
We don't monkey around. Budget process has started and the committee approved replacing the roof on the highway shop if we can come up with some funding. Let me see. And we have the vehicle registration fee, as we know, coming before the full county board on Wednesday. Next meeting will be June 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Morehouse, Cjcc.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We last met on April 28th. We introduced our 3 new members and we had a little true and false exercise about the responsibilities of the committee and parliamentary procedure and appropriate process in committee. And we also reviewed some options for a group orientation that we subsequently decided we will do as a group before our next meeting on May 26th. Each of the departments did a pretty broad overview of their functions, emphasizing particularly the services that are mandated and the services that are not mandated and where it was possible to attach costs and cost figures to those. Greg Quinn walked us through his annual report, which will be at the county board meeting next week, and wanted us to note particularly that $24 million in federal revenues have come to veterans in Dunn County, and much of which is expended in Dunn County for healthcare and other kinds of services. KT did a review of COVID-19 cases are rising again. Some issues about respiratory disease as well. And she also shared with us the fact that she and the department and the staff have received a certificate of commendation from Governor Evers, which is very nice. Chris Corpola reviewed with the committee the statute that governs the selection process for the Human Services Director. And we walked the committee, the new committee, through that process. We approved the 2 budget adjustments that we just looked at and just approved and reviewed the vouchers for May. We are interviewing candidates for the Human Services Director position beginning tomorrow and Friday. We had 16 applications. We are Supervisor Steen and I and Jenny Nutter reviewed the applications, narrowed the list down to 7. So we are interviewing 7 people tomorrow. We are holding a date for second interviews. I don't know whether that's something that we will want to look at, but we are holding that date. So both of those meetings, because they involve the whole committee, have been noticed for tomorrow. And our next meeting is the 26th of May.
Thank you. Supervisor Headland. admin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met last April 28th. We heard from all our staff that report to us via written reports and also updates to all of their budgets. Along with that, we heard from Mr. Lang on an update about the opioid settlement, that it was not probably going to be concluded as soon as hoped, but he was going to update us when new information came available. Along with that, we passed forward, obviously, the resolution for the adjustments to the grants to CJCC. Also amend the wage grid and the job classification inventory as was presented earlier. Along with that, we have 3 candidates that we will be interviewing tomorrow to replace the HR director's position here at Dunn County. And so hopefully soon you'll know what the outcome of that is. Beyond that, our next meeting will be hopefully here in this room, May 26th at 3 p.m. Thank you. Oh, and we did welcome new members and glad to have them aboard. I was very blessed to receive some very good sound previously trained members who will be certainly an asset to the admin committee and you know, good luck to you.
Thank you, Supervisor Headland.
Thank you all.
Supervisor Kinnear, neighbors.
Thank you. We met on the 28th. It sounds like other people did that same time too for the first time. And I have 4 new people on the neighbors board that hadn't been on the board before. 2 new supervisors. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be kind of fun. Carmen and the rest of the staff did just a fantastic job of orienting them and giving a little summary of everything. Looked real good. We're still working to start a CNA course so that if we teach them here, we can keep them here. I'm working on that. We had about 104 residents, which we've been kind of hanging around a little bit, that number. And of course, our total could be 138 or so if we had the people that could staff it. But we're kind of keeping her there and staffing it without too much overtime. Let's see, the neighbors Dunn County is looking for a bus to transport residents. They've been having some really good meals for fundraisers. And Carmen walked across the stage at the Menominee Foundation luncheon the other day and accepted the $5,000 grant going towards that bus. It was real nice. COVID showed up again. 7 residents were affected in one area. And from what I understand, it was a particular area where these residents party quite a bit. So they got together. Is that, yeah, so, you know, I guess they have quite a bit of fun out there sometimes.
Good for them.
But they're all okay. They were all okay. And kind of exciting news, Carmen is on the board of a Leading Edge. Would you call it an advocacy organization? What would you?
It's our state organization that works with all the nonprofits. So basically, we are members of it as a nursing home, and then there's a board of it. So I'm newly
on the board and regional chairperson of the committee. So that's nice. We get a voice there and a real good, strong voice. And I think that's it. Our next meeting is probably on the 19th, I think.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Quinn, PR&D.
Thank you. We had our meeting yesterday and did our monthly reports from each of the departments where they go through the key stats and activities for the for the month. We also reviewed the annual report from the Register of Deeds, which is in the board packet and be presented at the board meeting this month. We did our regular review of the goals that were established by the committee coming out of the groundwater quality task force that we established. This was almost 4 years ago now. And we go through them occasionally. This time staff picked out a couple of goals and gave us, I think, a really high quality presentation on them that I think gave us as committee members a real good idea of what's going on. In particular, one of the goals that came out of the groundwater committee was to have Dunn County have 100% of our farmland in nutrient management plans within 5 years. And I think after staff reviewed the work they're doing and the financial and logistical obstacles to getting that done, we all agreed that, which for example involved something like $800,000 a year in increased financing, kind of makes you step back and take a more realistic view of it. So we're going to be doing that, but still working on it. But one of the major recommendations that came out of the task force was to set up a water quality viewing website that was public facing to the community. And it's taken a number of years, given changes in staff and given COVID and just lack of time. But really, I think the committee has to give kudos to the whole staff, because it's the staff from land conservation, land information and IT, and the health department. So they have put together a site which is nearly ready for public viewing, probably later this month or first part of June, that is interactive, but will allow residents to see a whole range of data about water quality, groundwater quality in particular, and information about how that's determined, soils, and this will be tied to, so it'll be tied to testing. So when we do the testing for the baseline survey that we're going to do, all of those tests will be included, not the individual landowners, but the test results will all be included and charted on the map. And any citizen in Dunn County that is willing to can provide their own individual test onto that site. So this is it's a big deal to us. It's been working on it for 3 years, and staff just really kept on it, and we're getting to see the results, and I think you all will see the results fairly soon too. We talked a little bit about publicity on that, and I think when we get to Jim, we may have that may come up again. But the idea of how do we get the word out about this sort of thing to the community, and that we really don't have a very good way of doing that. It's a good example of that. We also talked about, what was it that we talked about? What did Ann give us a report on? I can't remember. Drawing a blank. Oh, yeah, contractor storage ordinance. Yeah. So one of the issues that's come up with some zoning questions in the past 6 years has been whether the county needs to have would benefit from having an ordinance that allowed for a designation of outside contractor storage. It doesn't fit in any category we have right now. And so as a committee, we reviewed that option and decided that we wanted to move ahead with trying to see what that would look like in its ordinance form. So we're going to be looking at that over the next few months. And if we decide to go ahead, we'll be bringing it back to this committee and to the board. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Quinn. Supervisor Rogers, facilities.
We had a rather short meeting, and it was on May 5th or May 25th. We're reviewing the camping in the in the county parks, and corporate counsel is writing up a rough draft for us to review and take under consideration. We had a Stout student, Brianna, I'm gonna skip her last name because I'll mess it up, but she's doing a master's program. Believed it was the capstone project is what she calls it. And she's going to be doing a review of all the county buildings to evaluate energy usage and costs so that we can better evaluate how we can move forward to reduce our emissions and get closer to our carbon-free goals that we have in the future, as well as maybe saving some money too. We're getting a hard number on the fans that was discussed for the county or for the county fair to put in. They don't have a actual cost for the installation. It's a kind of a budgetary number that was put out there. So we're getting hard numbers on that right now. And other than that, we will have another meeting in June, the 22nd.
Thank you. Supervisor Calabrese, Judiciary and Law.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had our meeting on April 25th, and it was my first meeting with the committee, as well as the chair, obviously. And we had two other new board members on the committee, and there are 5 members of the committee, including myself. So Katie Shelley, the clerk of courts, asked all the departments to give some more elaborate reports that included generally what the job of the departments are for our benefit, so we could understand that a little more for those of us who weren't there before. And that was very helpful. And in addition to those in-depth explanations, Judge Peterson and Judge Meyer were in attendance, and they discussed the Truancy Court and how that works in Dunn County. And I thought that was very interesting because I was not aware of it. And what else? We had Sarah Benedict discussed the medical assistant treatment at the jail that she talked about a little bit here. And yes, those reports were very helpful and thorough and much appreciated, especially by me. And then we looked through the budget adjustments from the sheriff's office, and one that was before this committee earlier today. After the overview that Marshal Multaff and Captain Doug Ormson gave us about the jail and the sheriff's office. And then we looked over the sheriff's office capital project request for 2023 to 2027, and we did not take any action on it, just looked over that. And the next meeting is May 23rd at 4:30. And we decided on that after a discussion about if we wanted to change that meeting time, and everybody said, nope, it's good as it is. And that was it.
Excellent, thank you. Supervisors on CR&T.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had our first meeting of the new county board makeup this past Monday, and fortunately for me, it was not a lot of turnover on my committee. Had one new member that we welcomed. Our meeting for the most part was all about extension, which it is much of the time, but with a new member, basically Catherine from Extension kind of gave an overview of what extension is and some of the things that it does, which was really helpful for the new member because she thought it was all about ag, and it's not all about ag. It does a lot of stuff having to do with human interaction and much more than ag. So that was part of the extension overview. Then we also had Louisa gave an extension overview on 4-H and some of the things and how 4-H is growing, a little bit again on the background and how during the COVID, it was a real challenge, and how the numbers are growing in Dunn County. So again, it was helpful information, especially for a new person on the committee, and having somebody who's only served for the past 2 years. Some of that was actually some new stuff for her. Then we got into a discussion about the new Visit Dunn County website. And I encourage everybody to kind of go and look at what's out there right now. It's actually up at visitduncounty.com. And one of the things that we're trying to do with it when working with the developer is that we still need information. And so the site that's out there right now has basically the ability for people to contribute information. And you can actually go and see that there are different categories. If you're an organization, if you are a community, if you have an event, there are different buttons that you can click or pictures you can click on that will take you to a form that gives people the ability to submit that information, because that's one of the biggest drawbacks right now with the site is making people know that it's there and then getting that information to add to the site. So that's kind of a big thing that's kind of was added this week. And again, I encourage you to, as you talk to constituents, you talk to business owners, you talk to community members, leaders who are organizing different things, to have them go to the site and submit information. So that was a part of the discussion. Then the other thing that I kind of brought up, and I want to kind of make part of the focus of the committee over the next couple of years, is information. And Supervisor Quinn just brought it up with his committee, in that, how do we get the information out there? And one of the things that I think has been pretty obvious in the community is that a lot of people in the community don't know what the county board does, don't know some of the decision-making process, and then information gets spread out there that is false, or it's misinformation, or it's disinformation. So one of the big topics with our committee was, how do we address that? What's a good way for us to counter that information? Because there's a lot of, a lot of the people, everybody that's sitting here in this room has been on the county board for, at least a couple of terms. And we wouldn't be here unless we cared about the county and we care about, what we do. And it's important to share that information. It's important to share the good things that the county does. And it's also important to share some of the difficult decision-making process, even some of the things that we need to be considering beforehand, so that wild rumors don't start, and misinformation and disinformation aren't spread out there. So one of the things that we talked about, and that we will probably bring forward to this committee, is having the county having some individual, whether it is an employee or a contracted position, that is kind of a communications and PR type specialist, somebody that can get this information out there. And using a lot of, there aren't a lot of newspapers really available for Dunn County, and not a lot of people read what is left out there. Colfax Messenger probably does one of the better jobs of actually covering the county than what Dunn County News does, just because of having a local reporter who is really focused on local issues, and also is a good writer. But there aren't a lot of different sources out there. So having some entity, whether it's a person, whether it's an employee, whether it's a contracted individual, that can provide a certain number of hours a week, that would communicate something like Supervisor Quinn's PR&D committee. Okay, it's time to get that out there, so that people know, here, this report is here, this website. And it's something that shouldn't fall to, say, like the IT department, because that's not their focus. Their focus is IT, it's computers. It's not necessarily communicating information that should come from somebody who is a specialist in writing and in communicating. So one of the things that we'll be discussing at our next meeting is how, what that position could be, how that could be potentially funded, and what that could look like, and then we would bring it back to this committee, because it's obvious that it's a need, and the greater Dunn County community, consumers, businesses, stakeholders are going to be better served if they know what the county board is doing and issues that are being considered, good things that the county board is doing, and difficult decisions that are having to be made, because right now that information isn't being conveyed. So I think we were hoping in our meeting probably to wrap it up around 6:15, and we ended up going more than a half hour beyond that because we had lots of good discussion about it. So that was the focus. And again, that's kind of what a big part of what I want to make a focus of the committee, the CRNT committee over the next couple years.
Thank you. And I appreciate the communications piece, particularly because that was one of the things that when we did our strategic plan a couple of years back, we talked a lot about doing a better job of communicating board decisions and what the county does to the citizens of Dunn County. And I don't know that we've ever done anything like as good a job of it as we would like. And I'm looking forward to you running with that and hopefully solving that problem. So thank you. And oh, hey, Supervisor Steen, why don't you share your news about your election to WCA? Well, I get my laptop to talk to me again.
Yeah. Chairman McCullough and Dave Bartlett too, before the election, asked me if I'd be interested in going to the Wisconsin Counties Association. And I said I thought I would be. And so I went over to their meeting, and each county chairman has one vote, and they elect the board of directors. And I got over there. It was quite interesting. So you don't have to have somebody nominate you. You can nominate yourself. Well, they had two old timers there that were nominated. And when I found out I could nominate myself, I said, well, that probably ain't kosher, but I'm going to nominate myself. And I says, I know I'm running against a couple of guys with a lot of seniority, but I'll throw my hat in the ring anyway. So the chairman from Barron County, he won on the first vote. So no problem, but we had 4 more votes before I was lucky enough to prevail. So now I'm on the board of directors of the Wisconsin Counties Association, and I appreciate Kelly putting me over there. And this will be in connection with the legislative committee. And I haven't talked to Kelly about this, but I'd like to have a short meeting, maybe at our next executive meeting, and just get the word out to the departments that we'd like for them to start getting their ideas for legislative ideas and different things. So I was surprised. I thanked the people, and I'm hopefully I said I hope I can add something to the process. So that's my I'm blowing my own horn, and now I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. It'll be very nice to have a voice from the WCA board. All right, shall we make one more attempt to with Beata?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here on the call.
Hey.
So you can see the screen also, Beata?
Yes, I can.
All right.
So, all right, want to provide a little bit of a background behind the CIP for Capital Improvement Plan for 2023 and 2027. Last year, it was advocated that there's going to be a workshop in March, which took place on the 26th of March. The intent of this workshop was to gather all the representatives in that meeting so we could have a one session as opposed to meeting with individual standing committees to circulate the CIP plan and get their endorsement. So again, that workshop being done on the 26th, we went in the great detail as to what was submitted by management and how they also prioritized those projects in what year. So what you see in front of you, it's a summary of all those projects that were submitted from for 2023 all the way through 2027. And during that workshop, the consensus was that ARPA money was prioritized over debt. So what I did then after the meeting is went through each and every project and identify ARPA to get a total based on what was submitted for each year. So you see that in 2023, we have 4.1 million of ARPA that will support those projects. Also, there is no debt, as that was the recommendation, given that there was a levy freeze of 3.1 million. So there's also other funding sources outside of the levy and ARPA, which is the GTA, which is the highway grant, vehicle registration fees, and also additional fees. And those fees are if there are any trade-ins or sale in equipment once a new one is acquired. So, and again, that is what was recommended based on the direction that was given post the workshop on March 26th. And this is what's presented to this committee, which then will be also presented to the county committee next week on the 18th. So if you had a chance to review in great detail, I also provided you the detail behind the summary was presented on this slide. But prior to that, there's a couple additional documents that go into a great detail. That also will provide you information about what type of a project that is and some brief justification and narrative. In addition to that, during this workshop, I did intensive review or research on the ARPA funds. Although we qualify for all the loss of revenue, meaning that all the ARPA money that's been awarded to Dunn County, we can spend it as the board agrees to spend. However, you know, as I was going through these projects, giving the priority of these projects in tandem with to justify the ARPA funding for the board. So you'll see in this document too, some comments that I've provided as to why is it ARPA eligible? Or why would it be appropriate to allocate ARPA funds? And that again is for the board to consider. So any questions for me?
I'm looking around. I'm not seeing any hands up yet. Supervisor Quinn.
Maybe I'm just missing or not listening carefully enough, but so that in 2023, we'll take at one section, I forget which one, it says we will incur $1,261,930 in debt. Is that
in
2023?
In 2023, there will be no debt. The debt is zero on the recommended column, which is highlighted in yellow.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
And I was not listening.
Yes,
Well. Thank you.
I think this,
Right, I'm
the
sorry.
center
I should
column,
clarify. The column right to your left is what was originally submitted
Yep.
and what each department recommended for funding.
Okay.
The second column was my first round for the review before we had the workshop. because it was based on some scenarios that I put together for board to consider. And one of the scenarios that was chosen is what shows on the very left column, as the recommendation was no debt and maximize the ARPA funding for those projects. So that's what you see in the very last column.
So the column that's highlighted in that kind of light putty color that's the result of the workshop and the consensus of the county board to.
County board, it's the county board workshop recommended amounts and their funding sources. That is correct. You also notice too, like for example, in 2023, on the far left, this is what the county managers submitted. And you see it's like 9.769 million. And as you go to the the opposite side of the document, what was recommended is a little bit lower. So that is because I went through and with management, in tandem with management, what was priority and what we would purchase in 2023 with ARPA funds. So we shifted one or two small projects to be delayed, but use ARPA money in 2023. And right on the top of it, if you can scroll, it can scroll just a little bit, and a little too much. Right on the top there, what I show you is historically, we were awarded $8.12 million in ARPA funds. We've already applied 3.287 of that this year for 2022. So what really remained is the 5.4 million or so. So we were able to apply 4.1 million of that for 2023, and then 1.3 million we would still have to fund projects in 2024. Also, during that workshop, what was brought up to the board's topic was the fans for the county fairgrounds. So I also want to point that out, that that's already accounted for in the applied ARPA money. Okay? Because the fairground was not submitted, fairground did not submit a CIP request for these fans. So this wasn't originally in the document that gathered from all the other management. So during that meeting, it came up and was supported of $40,000 for these fans. So I've made sure that when I was allocating on the recommended column for the board direction, that $40,000 did not get missed and it did get accounted for. So then that remains our balance at a zero. We would then max out our ARPA funds by 2024. Also, I want to mention that the ARPA funds, even though some of the projects that we're committing ourselves to in 2024, or the vehicle that we're purchasing in 2023 or in 2024, we might not see them in our possession or parking lot until 2026. But ARPA allows, for ARPA rule, is as long as we have a PO and a commitment, then that is, we're going to be fine with committing those funds with either a PO or an agreement in 2024. And then when the vehicles and the trucks get delivered at later time, we would pay them upon delivery.
Beata, Supervisor Morehouse, do you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Supervisor Quinn might have the
Go ahead.
same question.
I think we have the same question.
My memory sometimes fails me, but we did allocate $175,000 of ARPA monies for a private well testing program, and I don't see that in here. Would be land and water conservation.
Okay, let's
not in the detail.
It's not on the detail. Okay, there should be land and conservation for them. Okay, land and water. So, and zoning. So they have the truck and the GPS system on here that I see. The surveyor has a survey total station. So I know that on the bottom of my total, there was $100,000 allocated towards ARPA funds. That would be on the very bottom page, Nick. I'm sorry. Right into where the summary is. Keep down just a little, dab down, a little bit down. Oh, maybe, oh. It's in that summary page. Maybe it was that the first document in the summary page? Yeah, in the summary page, there was includes broadband of 100,000 K. So the other item you've mentioned, I'm sorry, what was that?
Was $175,000 approved by this committee and
It came out,
by the board, yeah?
it came out in the workshop as well.
$175,000 for private well testing program. And it just does not appear in this spreadsheet.
I apologize.
No.
That is an adjustment that would have to be made and reflected in the same way that the fans for the county fairgrounds is. So it would reduce the ARPA funding available for 2024 by the amount being set aside for use for the testing program of $175,000.
Right, I apologize for missing that. I have made a note that about the fans, but I didn't mean to miss. So if the directive is that this project gets done in 2023, then I would move accordingly.
Could you repeat that, Betty? You would,
No,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I think she said if it was scheduled for 2023, she would include it. It would be included there, but I don't think that was what was intended. I think it was intended to be utilized as soon as the program can begin for 2022.
Right.
Either way, that amount has to be set aside for it.
yeah. I think that's the only.
Right. Right. So that's just going to reduce, I'm going to reduce the ARPA funds from 2024 by that 175,000.
Anyone else have questions for Beata? Supervisor.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it.
So thank you, Chairman. Is this going to be in 2022 budget as well as 2023?
No. The 2022 budget was already prepared and finalized and brought to the county board in November of last year. And so there is a capital improvement plan element for the 2022 budget, but it's not reflected in this plan. The capital improvements plan it's a 5-year plan that, we project out for 5 years to try to plan for things that need to be taken care of, capital projects. And then each year we review it again to see if the needs are still the same or if there are any new ones, any, opportunities to move things forward. Roof on the highway shop. Yeah, we're actually addressing that with some carryover funds from the judicial center roof. We're going to try and figure out a way to fix it. But I'm sorry.
So the program, this water testing program won't start until 2023. Is that what I understand?
I'm not sure when it will start. The underlying action probably needs to occur in order to put the details together. But it was the county boards, it was the consensus during the workshop meeting, and as a result of discussion and committee action at the Planning Resource and Development Committee that $175,000 of ARPA funds be protected for the purpose of this program. So it should be accounted for in the into the capital improvements plan, because the capital improvements plan includes utilization of ARPA funds both this year or both for 2023 and for 2024. So it's going to impact the balance of ARPA funds that are available for the capital improvements plan. It could be an amendment, it could be just an amendment to the budget for the facilities committee this year. We haven't figured out, or not facilities, land and water conservation. But it just has an impact on the amount of ARPA funds that's left in the ARPA bank account,
Yeah, and I think the timeline is more or less as quickly as we can move. So if we do part of it in 2022, it will reflect forward in the available funds.
Right.
That's what I thought.
It's not really a capital improvement issue. It just has an impact on the balance of ARPA funds that are available as it relates to capital improvement plan.
Right, so $175,000 gets taken out of ARPA, which will decrease the number that you see here. Then the funding source for another project, let's say in 2024, would then be debt.
All right, does anyone else have anything they want to add to the discussion, or do we want to get a motion to move this forward to the county board? Supervisor Headland, or Supervisor Quinn first.
Well, Bear is going to have to make some adjustments to this. So
Correct.
could the motion be to move this forward?
Contingent on the adjustment?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I'd make that motion.
Supervisor Quinn made the motion, Supervisor Steen seconds.
I got a.
Oh, you got a question.
Question also. He took me for a second, but I'll second it also.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right, now.
Now you can talk.
All right, Beata, I want, what year are we taking the 175,000 out? Are we taking it out in 22 or 23?
So it's going to, right, so what's going to happen is I will go back and based on what management recommended as, is this a low priority, high priority, or moderate priority? So I'll start with what was moderate priority from the management to see if any project in 2023 perhaps can be pushed into 2024.
It's not really a
Right.
capital improvement project, though.
It just comes out.
It's a program
Right.
the committee wants to
Right.
implement that utilizes ARPA funds as its pretty much its sole source of funding. Probably,
Right.
also some available, some staff time, which is already in the budget. And so it just needs to be accounted for so there will be less available for 2024 than is shown here.
Yeah, I think I can, it is a removed from the available budget for the 2024 ARPA spending.
Correct.
So it will be spent in 2022, 2023, depending on timeline, but the effect on the capital improvement plan is to reduce the ARPA funds available for 2024 by 175,000.
This Norwegian finally got it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Excellent question.
Anything further? All righty, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes and goes on to county board. And that brings us very close to the end of our agenda. Next meeting date will be June 8th, 2022. So if I've missed anything, please call it to my attention. This is my first time doing this particular one. All righty then, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Beata.
You're welcome. Bye.